He's going to be going over some business planning with us. We are recording, so you guys will be able to go back and rewatch this on our private Facebook page later today. And we'll get right into it. Lowell has a presentation ready to go. So Lowell, if you're ready to go.
Yeah, if people don't mind muting your mics, or getting a little bit of bounce back, so.
Okay. We'll go ahead and mute now.
Well, I'm very excited about talking today. This is one of my passions, is talking about starting a new business or how to get it set up. But just a little bit about me and my W-2 to self-employed story. I went from working in a corporate job for about 15 years selling advertising, yellow pages and radio and different things. But I was getting to a certain point, in 1991, I started a little, side business. And that was kind of my first real experience with being an entrepreneur of any kind. I mean, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Everybody in my family had businesses. But anyway, in 2004, I decided it was time to be serious and either do it and do it big or go home. So that's when I jumped into it, and I bought a national franchise called MARS. It stands for Mobile Appearance Reconditioning Service. So basically, as you can see there, I had a 18 or 16-foot cargo trailer, and I pulled it behind my truck, and I called on RV dealers and car dealers and everything, and basically kind of had a mobile body shop offering 30 different reconditioning services. So I guess all those years of sanding cars and doing all the things that I did at my dad's shop helped. But anyway, that was my first journey into that. And I've had several other businesses since then. I've had an online membership site. I've had a bakery business. I had a restaurant and cafe and a few other little things. But anyway, learned a lot and went through a lot to get there. But now what I do, and I've been doing this for the last 8 years, and I work with JD. I don't know how many of you know him, but he was my coach for a while, and I absolutely hated what I was doing. And I'm like, I gotta stop this. I gotta do something else. So, what my passion was all the back end stuff of business, doing the books and doing all these things. And I started helping a few of my friends with some things. And he said, well, why don't you just do that full time? I'm like, well, I just can't quit my job. I gotta, be able to pay my bills and all that. So anyway, the point is kind of what we're going to talk about today is I put together a plan, and in about 6 months, I was able to replace my income, go full time, and that was a little over 8 years ago. So that's kind of where I'm at today, and where I've gone from there. But I would like to just take a minute, because now you know a little bit about me. I do live in Carthage, by the way. I have a wife and 4 kids. We are empty nesters, so and getting ready to be grandparents in August. So, but anyway, we can just take a minute, and if everybody could just introduce yourself. I want to know 3 things: your name, where you live or where you're at, and what stage of business are you in?
Okay, I'll go first. Chris Forsyth, and I think you said where we live. So I'm in the Johnson.
City.
What's that? What state? So
Missouri. City.
Yep. Nevada, Missouri, and I'm 5 years in on my business. So jumping out of my W-2, just kind of like Lowell did, out of corporate and doing my own thing. So I'm 5.5 years in on mine.
Awesome.
All right, I'll go next. Dustin Osborne. I live in Lamar, Missouri. Worked for Walmart for 24 years. That's my W-2, and I am 1 year, 1 month into my real estate investment journey. And we got 12 properties at this time.
Okay.
Levi Babb, Joplin, Missouri, 6 years in on doing real estate sales, property management, and real estate investing.
Nick Coble, I'm in Lamar, Missouri. I'm about 3 years into real estate, a couple years into dabbling.
Yeah, this is Nick Kime. I'm about 3 years into real estate. I live in Springfield, Missouri, and I'm kind of at the point, business-wise, I'm kind of at a growth point. I've done a lot of work to kind of get positioned where I'm at for growth, and so that's where I'd say I'm at a growth point.
Okay. I think that's half of you.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm Craig Lowe. I'm a year and a half into real estate investing. And I would say I'm in the growth phase, trying to acquire more property so I can quit my W-2.
And where are you from?
Oronogo, Missouri.
Okay. All right.
I'm Jill Flackney, and I am in Joplin, and I'm also in Columbia. I co-locate between the two. I'm retired and just playing around, seeing where this takes me. So been selling real estate as a licensed agent for a little over 6 years now, and have been investing for 1.
Sure. Did we miss anybody?
I think a few of them, I think one's on a phone and the other one's kind of working from their desk at work. So I think
Okay, that's
we can go
fine.
forward. Yeah.
No problem. I
Thanks,
just
Lowell.
want to kind of get a flavor, or idea of
Yeah.
who we have, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So, okay, well, let's just jump in here. So I have a dream, and my dream is a vacation to Italy. Okay. And so I want to talk about that for a minute because it's a big dream. But you know that according to travel experts, on average, to plan a trip like that, you're looking at 6 to 18 months or more to plan a vacation. It's a lot of work. And just like planning another trip, you want to look at a roadmap and build something. And so here's are some of the steps to planning that trip. Is first, you got to know how much money you're working with. So having a budget, and by the way, I have a great budget sheet for that. If you ever want to plan a vacation, it's dynamic, it's fantastic. But anyway, you know, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Well, I want to go to Italy, but I want to go up in the hill country. Then I want to go cook with some chefs, and I want to go, you know, see how they do olive oil and you know, stuff like that. I mean, I want to see some of the history stuff too, but you know, there's a lot of research into flights and dates and trying to figure out how you're going to get there. You know, what kind of deals can I find? You know, I'm going to have to start that savings process at some point and dive into it. But, you know, once I get there, I'm going to have to make an itinerary. And then hopefully once I get there, it's all paid for, we're good, then I'm going to enjoy it and have a good time. Well, as I said, that's a lot of work. But, you know, planning this trip and going through the steps are kind of the same as starting a business. And that is you got to have a vision of where you're going. What is it you're wanting to accomplish? How are you going to get there? And all those kind of things. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. So I want to tell a story about vision and all that. I don't know how many of you met TD Jakes. I'm sorry, not TD Jakes. Anyway, Bad News Britain. He was at the Big Vision Day last year. TJ, anyway, he tells a story at his talk about his dad took him to a cemetery one time, and he's like, "What are we doing here?" And he says, "I just wanted to show you that these are some of the richest and wealthiest people in the world in these graves that took their ideas and their dreams and their visions to the grave with them because they never would step out and actually make it happen. So we don't want to do that. So what we're talking about today is, okay, if you're going to step out of your W-2, how are you going to do it? How are you going to get there? And all the pieces that go along with it. So one of the things that's really important in getting a vision or a goal, a destination of where you're going is you got to brainstorm and be very, very detailed about what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, and all these pieces. So I'll tell a little story about that. I was running the disaster relief center in Joplin during the Joplin tornado, and I had over 50 people employed working with me from the Workforce Development Board, and I mean, it was craziness. But I ran the kitchen. I had a staff of 6 people back there as one of my duties. But one of the ladies that I worked with, she had been through a really bad situation, abusive husband, beating her and the kids and all these kind of things. Well, anyway, long story short, she ended up getting divorced and all that. And she's like, man, I wish I could just find me a good cowboy one of these days. And I'm like, a cowboy? She said, no, I'm from Texas. She said, I want a cowboy. I said, okay. So we were making breakfast one morning and I said, well, what's this cowboy look like? And she says, what? I said, what's he look like? And she's like, I don't understand. I said, what does he look like? What color hair does he have? What color eyes does he have? How tall is he? You know, is he fat, skinny, whatever? I mean, I don't know. What's he look like? She says, well, I don't know. I've never thought about it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I said, when you go home tonight, I want you to get a piece of paper out and I want you to write down every single detail about what this cowboy looks like, what his personality is, you know, everything you want in this cowboy. And I said, if you don't do it, I said, then don't come to work in the morning. And I just walked off and left her do what she was doing. Well, I didn't know if she was going to come to work the next day or not. But anyway, she showed up and we were serving, I think, 300 or 400 people breakfast that morning. And so I just leaned over and said, so did you write out your list? She says, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. We'll go over it. So she had written down this list. It was 2 pages long. And she had everything from the hair color to eyes, how tall he was, how much he weighed. You know, she wanted to be godly. She had a little girl, so she had to love him, all this stuff. Okay, fast forward about 4 years. She moved to Texas and she met that cowboy, and guess what? Everything on her list was him. He had a ranch. He was financially secure. He was a godly man. He loved God, served God, all those things. He fell in love with her daughter and fell in with her. Anyway, so now they are happily married and live happily ever after. But the moral of the story is she was just hoping that something would happen. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You got to think about this. You got to detail what's it look like. So the same happens with your vision. What does it look like? You know, why are you wanting to get into real estate? Is it because you want to make a lot of money? Is you want the lifestyle that it gives you? I mean, you need to be very detailed oriented about it and write all this stuff down. So give yourself permission and sit down sometime and just have a brainstorming session where you write down every idea that comes through your mind and goes through all that stuff. And don't just think about the work, think about your life, your family time, your schedule, you know, money goals, whatever they are. All of those things are critically important. And they will help you tremendously understand kind of where you're going. But I also want to throw out a reference material for that. And there's a little book called The On Purpose Person. I'll show it to you. It's on my bookshelf here. This is called The On Purpose Person by Kevin W. McCarthy. And then he has a follow-up book that's called The On Purpose Business. Hope you can see that. But anyway, they're great little books. Like you said, it's really thin. It's only like, I don't know, 100 pages or something. But he goes through kind of telling a story, but the point is he walks you through the whole process of actually helping you pull out of yourself what your goals are, and it addresses all 7 areas of your life: spiritually, financial, physical, emotional, education, family time, all these things. But it's a great resource to help you kind of understand those goals and all that stuff. So again, the first thing is do a brainstorming session. And then, I would recommend you get that book and help walk through those steps of where are you going? Because the real question is where do you want to be in 10 years? What's that look like? Okay, so if you know what you're going to have in 10 years or where you're going, well, then it's a whole lot easier to start planning for 5 years from now, because you're going to have to make certain steps along the way. And then to get to that 5-year goal, you're going to have to know what you have to do this year to accomplish it. And you got to know what you're going to do this month to accomplish it, and this week, and today, what do I need to do? So those are all very important about that. So let's go to this real quick. Again, do you want to be a real estate broker? Do you want rentals? Do you want to flip property? You want commercial, wholesaling? I mean, are you going to have an office? Are you going to have employees? I mean, again, everything, anything you can think of, and nothing's off limits. So don't even think about the money side of it. Just think about what this is going to look like and where you're going. Okay, so let's see, make sure I'm covering the things I want to tell you about. All right, so I want to talk about this for a second, and that is, lots of people have a business idea, but do they have the characteristics needed to succeed? I want to talk about this, Mick, because it's a very important piece of this. So, I was just I'm one of the organizers with 1 Million Cups. I don't know how many of you have been to that or not, but it's an educational entrepreneurial program from the Kauffman Foundation. So there's over 160 chapters that meet throughout the country every Wednesday morning for coffee and connection. And it's an entrepreneur mentorship program. But the point is, lots of people get up and talk about their business or what their idea is, but there's a lot of pieces they don't necessarily think about on getting that business up and running or going. So, are you going to have certain education? I mean, are you going to be, you have to have a certain real estate license, or you have to have different things like that. Probably if you're going to flip houses, either you or a partner or somebody needs to have construction experience. But another thing, what motivates you? Are you self-motivated to get up every day and do what is needed to get the job done? In other words, what that boils down to, that's why I started with goals, is a lot of that motivation comes from whether or not you're lined up with your goals and where you're going every day and what you're doing. And that, to get that done, there's a lot going on. I mean, I'll just use Chris as an example because I know him better, but he's got real estate going on, he's got a coffee shop going on, he's got all these things that he's doing. So that takes some planning and some effective time management to get all that done. You agree with that, Chris?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely managing the calendar and the planner very well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you have to be persistent. In other words, you can't give up, and if you can't get down a road one way, you got to find another way to get there.
Yeah.
And then
always pivoting.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, you've got to be decisive. If you're wishy-washy, you can't make decisions, we need to talk. Because you know it as well as I do, time is money, but also if you're going to jump on a property that's a good deal, you better jump now or it's going to be gone. But I want to tell this real quick, and that is another thing is, if you're married or have a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, you need to have a supportive family or, people around you that are supportive of what you're doing. Now, when I started my Mars business and did that, and my wife was very supportive, we basically put everything on the line to do it, and we did it. But later on, when I had the opportunity to start a restaurant, she was not supportive. She did not want me to do that. I mean, we're in a situation and I had an opportunity and I had to make a decision. She didn't necessarily agree with it, but I went ahead and did it anyway. And I can just tell you that that was 2.5 years of, well, we're lucky to be still married, so let me put it that way. But it was very, very, very hard on the family. So if your spouse or significant other, whatever, is not on board, maybe you need to rediscuss it and look at that, because having that support is critical. All right. So anyway, we talked about all those things, but again, having a roadmap is very important. And so just like I said, planning a trip, you've got to have that plan. And so these are some of the pieces I want to talk about, especially with starting a business. But obviously, we're going to talk about financials first. Financials, and one of the things that I'm very, and like I said, I learned this the hard way. I've started a couple of businesses with basically no money and, tried to figure it out as I went. It doesn't work very well. But especially in real estate and all that, you've got to have savings. You've got to have some money available somehow. But as well as I do that that money's not fast usually. And so, personal finances, I mean, we highly recommend, that you can meet your personal financial needs for 6 to 18 months, one way or another. And making sure that you have all those pieces in place to get you started. Because, the bank, when they want to say you're going to load money, okay, well, let me see your finances. How much money do you have in savings? How much money, do you have in property? What's your net worth? What are your startup costs going to be? What kind of finances are you looking at and options of financing? So there's a lot of pieces in there that are really, really important. And then over here on this side is, once you kind of figure out a lot of this, then you really kind of need to, especially if you're going to do SBA or, get loans with the bank or whatever, they're going to want to see some kind of a business plan. What's the business going to be about? Like I said, are you flipping property? Or are you, what's the plan? But you're going to have to present something to do that. They want to usually see something other than just your financial statement, because they want to kind of know where you're going. But again, what are you going to be offering? How is the business going to be set up legally? I mean, are you going to be a sole proprietor? Are you going to be an S corp? Are you going to be a corporation? Are you a partnership? I mean, there's a lot of pieces of things that you have to think about, things you have to work on. You have to get registered with the state as a business. You got to have possibly have a federal ID number. There's just a lot of those little things that add up there to make that happen. But again, I hate to bring this up, but I mean, you got to have an organizational structure, because, if you're going to do this, what happens if you get hit by a bus and you can't work or you're gone? What happens to that property? What happens to the business? How does this stuff? And you got to have all these pieces in place. And, that's one of the things I do. Like I said, I do business consulting, I do financial coaching, but I also have a program that's called the Business Startup Formula. And this is one of the things that we work through when people are starting a business, because we try to take them from an idea to having, start a business and be profitable. But one of those pieces is setting up all of this back end stuff to make sure that you're, compliant and all those kind of things. So anyway, but an executive summary, that's the last thing you write, because you got to figure out all these other pieces before you can get there. But then on the other side too is what's your marketing plan gonna be? You know, have you assessed the market? I mean, is it oversaturated with people that are doing investing? I mean, I don't know. What's your competition doing? You know, who are you looking for? How are you gonna find these houses? I don't, how many of you know James Light that was on the call last month? From Texas? Well, I can't see it, but anyway, the point is, JD and I helped him for a while, and one of the things that I did was he called me a hound dog. So I was out sniffing neighborhoods and looking around for houses that were possibly available and finding those people who owned them and seeing if they were interested in selling and what they wanted and all those kind of things. Well, I mean, is that your plan? Or, I mean, do you have someone who's going to do that? I mean, I don't know. These are all things that you need to figure out within there. And then, you know, are you going to do some kind of a budget for that? I know that one of the things James did is he had a guy that had some kind of I don't know all the details, but he had some kind of a program that sent out automated emails and all that to these people that own properties and all this kind of thing. And we got a ton of calls from it, but you know, we bought quite a few houses off of that program. But anyway, it was part of the marketing budget and plan. And so that was one of the things that we did there. All right. But anyway, so like I said, when you are setting all this up, these are some of the critical pieces that are going to be involved in making sure you can get this up and running and get going properly and are heading in the right direction. Computer work. Okay. So I've got a little bit of homework for you. And that is that, you know, once you sat down and kind of put your plan together, did your brainstorming, kind of get an idea of where you're going. And I know some of you have been doing this for a while, so you may have already done all this, but if you haven't, I'm going to challenge you to do it anyway. But now it's time to take some action and, you know, make a list after you kind of get this stuff together, make a list of the top 10 things that you really need to get done in order to get where you're going. You know, I just did a time management class last night with a company. And one of the things we were talking about is, you know, with time management, if the things that you're doing don't align with your goals, then why are you doing them? You know, I mean, there's 100 different groups that I can go to, leads groups for the chambers. I've got BNI, I've got 1 Million Cups, I've got leads groups, I've got, you know, all these different things. I can go to ribbon cuttings, coffees, after hours, all these things. But if that doesn't line up with my goals and where I'm going, then why am I spending the effort to do that? So, you know, that's one thing I think to challenge you with is be intentional on everything you're doing, because you only have so many hours in the day. And if you're not being intentional with them, again, and you're working towards your goal, well, then that's not going in the right direction. You guys have been awfully quiet, but this is your time to now. I want to kind of open it up and let's just talk and see if you have any questions and see if there's anything that I can offer ideas on or whatever. But that's kind of the nutshell where I would start. So who's first? Who's got a question? I'll get this so I can see it. See you guys. Stop that. There we go. Now I can see everybody. Not everybody at once. Just jump in there though.
Hey, I always have questions. Everybody counts on me because I've always got something to say.
Awesome. I love questions.
Lowell, I'm gonna ask Nick Kime a question, and then I just want you to be the teacher as we talk about this. So,
Sure.
Nick, you had mentioned earlier that you have done some work in your journey now to the point now where you've positioned yourself to be able, you're like in a growth stage. I'm currently in a stabilization, what I call I'm in stabilizing. I'm very, very into that. So I'm right behind you, Nick. So what is it? How did you know you were to the point that you were ready to grow? Is it because did you meet some type of check some boxes to where you're like, hey, I need to get all this stuff done to where I can move forward? Or what did that look like for you? How did you know that you're ready to grow, or you knew you were out of stabilization mode?
Yeah, so the first thing was, I did as much as I could with conforming loans. So that I reached the end of that point. And then after I got through my conforming loan where I couldn't do any more with my debt to income ratio, I kind of look at the next phase. So the next phase then involved getting investors. And to get to that point, I had to have an asset protection strategy in place. I had to have some funds that were seasoned for the type of loan I want to get. I needed to have the insurance in place, and then I need to have what that investment packet looks like. And then I also, my wife went through the realtor course so that we could look at MLS and see what's been on market for 90 plus days. So now that we've got, so now we can see what's on market or dates on markets, 90, 100 days. I have the operating agreement already drafted with an attorney that I can put in front of friends and family. I have funds that will finish seasoning in mid-May that's been sitting in my checking account. So all those things are in place in order for me to, and now I've got friends and family who are interested in partnering with us. So now once I get that's all in place, I can go out, find the properties, make the offer, put an investment pack together, put it in front of some of my friends and family, and move on that investment. So that's kind of where all those things had to be done before I felt comfortable moving forward.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Very
thanks for
good,
sharing
very
all
good.
that context. That was super detailed. I mean, you saying what you just said is just, I mean, that there's been a lot of time obviously you spent, and then learning and, you know, skinning your knees to go, oh no, I need to do that. Well, I didn't know I needed to do that. And so now you're to the point where you're fully ready. And, you know, even how about this? What about like you think you're ready, but then you find out from a bank like, oh no, we can't do this. You don't have money sitting in a bank that's been sitting seasoning. So
Yeah.
you're like, ah, crap. Now
Yep.
I've got 6 more months to go, and I thought I was ready now. So, you know, just
Yeah.
learning things like that is super helpful. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just because I just wanted to hear from somebody that's just right in front of me what all that looks like. So appreciate that. Lola, any thoughts that you have on, you know, from my question to Nick and where he's at?
Yes, what I wrote down here is that Nick, it sounds like you were very, very intentional and you kind of did your due diligence, but it sounds like your plan goes along with your goal of where you're headed. And so one of the things I didn't mention, but it's very critical, is when you're setting these goals, number one is you need to make sure that that goal is actually attainable. So, you know, I can say, well, yeah, I want to do $10 million in property the next year. Well, is that maybe really not is that really doable or not? But okay, so is it attainable? The second thing is what's the timeline? You know, what you need to set benchmarks along the way. So like you were just saying, you had all these plans up, but then you find out from the bank that you got to wait another 6 months. Well, you know, with a few questions and things like that, and like it sounded like he's planning out that, you know, setting those timelines and goals is really important to making sure you can do that. But then the other thing is too, is I kind of look at it this way, is that the next step of that is, okay, they're attainable, here's the benchmarks, but now once I reach it, then what? So in other words, where's that gonna head to what's the next step? Because you really need to be planning ahead for that too. So, but great job, Nick. It sounds like you're on a good track there. So
Yeah, my background is software project management. So
so do you know about Agile?
yeah, we've been doing traditional and agile for mixed shop for a while.
Awesome. Yeah, I worked for a project management company for 2 years. So good.
Hey, I want to ask a bonus question real quick, and Nick, just for the fun of it. Nick, what is today's current finish line look like? What's the goal to get to from financial or investing or whatever? What's your goal?
So really the goal is I want to have the option to have W-2 replacement. And I feel like that's just right now, that's kind of just goes to have the option to do that. And my then kind of related to that, the process I'm setting up in place, the next phase down the road will be scaling, figuring out how to scale that beyond friends and family, which that'll start getting into the syndication side. And I'm not ready to go down that road yet, but yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Good stuff. Who else has a question? Well, we got a lot of bashful people or something.
Well, I've got a really basic question, but it
Okay.
kind of leads up to our May event, and that's what is the biggest holdback that you see when someone thinks about leaving their W-2? But what's their biggest obstacle in their mind? Like what holds people back the most? It may be the smallest thing, but what do you see that holds people back the most?
Oh, my first initial thought was just fear of the unknown. But again, you know, I was in my talk, I was talking about, you know, getting your finances in order is probably one of the number one things that, I mean, I'll just give you an example. I had a guy call me up one time and I'd only met him once. And he says, hey, I just want to get some advice from you, or, you know, what my steps were and how I can get a business license. But my girlfriend and I are going to start a restaurant. I said, well, that's great. And I said, well, you tell me a little about it. So he did, or whatever. And I said, well, I guess my first question is how much money have you got saved? And my second question is what's your background for running a restaurant? He said, well, we don't have any money. We're going to get money from friends and family. And people are just going to give us money because we can start it. I'm like, okay, that's probably wrong. Anyway, the second thing is he had absolutely no experience in the restaurant business at all. And his wife was in Missouri Southern as a culinary student. So, I mean, she was basically learning, you know, basics of restaurant stuff. But anyway, the point was they had a big idea. But I mean, you know, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just thought people were going to give them money. But they had no savings or anything. So, like I said, having those goals and having some ideas there, but planning that ahead and getting some counsel, I think, is a great place to start. You know, so if someone was in real estate, you know, that's one thing that I love about Real Estate Investment Association is you got a lot of seasoned people there. And if you're getting ready to start that, well, I would be talking to every single one of you and getting ideas. You know, like, you know, I mean, I'll pick on Dustin here for a minute since he asked a question. You know, what would you tell someone brand new? How much money do they need to have saved?
For a restaurant in your example, or for
No. In real estate. I mean, let's say they want to be a real estate investor and buy, flip properties and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what's your...
Well, sorry you picked me, Lowell, because I'm not going to give you the answer you thought.
That's all right.
I have two answers. So the first one was I had to try to start. I had to do it without zero money because we had a lot of money saved up, but my wife was really leery about this idea of investing in real estate. So she just said, hey, as long as we don't use any of our money or put our house up for, you know, collateral or anything like that, then we can do that, move forward. So I had to get creative on how to get started. I just was super blessed to get a seller financing deal from a retiring real estate investor. But I will tell you that if in the experience I have now, that you need to have at least 6 months to start, if not 12 months of, you know, backup money for vacancy, maintenance and repair. And if you're going to start with one house, that's not a lot of money. And then you just build from there.
Levi, I see you over there shaking your head. What do you think?
Depends on how much furniture you're willing to sell out of your house. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, you know, I know when I got started, I was pushing as close to 6 months as possible, you know, kind of setting aside to make sure that, you know, there was kind of that security to make sure that, you know, going into real estate investing, just kind of those unknowns that, you know, okay, I just bought a house, and then all of a sudden what happens if a water heater goes out, or, you know, major plumbing goes wrong or something like that, that can get pretty costly. So, you know, obviously a lot of that can be negated on the front end side when you buy, you know, making sure that, you know, that stuff's checked out and everything like that. But I joke about selling furniture. I mean, when I got started, that's what I was doing. So.
Well, you know, I like I said, just with my experience around James, and then just some of the things that I did in business myself. I mean, yes, there are some wonderful creative financing ideas and things out there that you can do, but and I don't roll your eyes here, but I am a Dave Ramsey financial coach. So, but one of the things that we teach in that, especially in this situation, or if you're in some kind of a, a bad situation, we have a thing called protect your four walls first. Okay, so you need to make sure you can pay your house payment. You need to make sure you can put food on the table. You need to make sure that, you have transportation to get back and forth to work and that you can take care of your family. So, food and all that. Well, then, so I guess my saying is, that's where the whole concept is, 3 to 6, 4, 12, whatever. But, Dustin, you said, that's fine, but you can't touch our money. In other words, she wanted to protect your four walls because you want to lose your house and your stuff over that venture. So anyway, that's the other thing. But having those in place, I said it's good planning, but also the thing is I don't know about you guys but my wife is the security person. I guess I don't gamble, but I'm the gambler according to her. So, so, she's the brakes and I'm the go. And so, but having that money and savings and being able to know, hey, we can pay the house and feed the kids or whatever, that's like a security blanket. So it's important because remember what I was talking about earlier, you got to have a supportive family and that thing. So I think that's a real big thing. But like I said, there's a lot of fear involved with quitting that W-2 and having that guaranteed paycheck. So, but it not necessarily it's all money either. There's a lot of other reasons, and different people have different reasons, but it could just be a fear of failure. I mean, there's a lot. So we hear a lot of different things, but I hope that answered your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah, it did. Lowell, we got a question that came in from
right.
someone, Austin. Austin asked, what advice would you give someone who has a W-2 with great health insurance, et cetera, but chronic health conditions? How would someone approach getting affordable health care benefits, et cetera, when transitioning from a W-2 job?
There's a couple options. These are the ones we tell people about. But the National Chamber of Commerce has a health insurance program now for people that are self-employed. And so if you go through your chamber, they can direct you to one of the agents in your area that offers that plan. And from what I've been told, it is fantastic coverage and very reasonably priced. The second option is, I don't know, I mean, this is just an example, but in Joplin and Neosho and all that, I mean, there's a company called Free Market Physicians, and it is a PPO or a primary care physician membership program. It's not insurance, it's membership program. So you pay $80 a month and you can go to the doctor 24/7. You have access, you get all your prescriptions at wholesale, you get imaging and all that wholesale. But basically my point is that covers all of your physician part of your healthcare. And anybody's insurance will tell you that when it comes to healthcare, the expensive part is that part. So the major medical is the part that is actually a lot easier to get and not that as expensive. But for example, we recommend Craft Insurance in Joplin. They have a program that's specifically designed to kind of go along with Free Market's program. So you can let Free Market do your doctor stuff, and then they can set you up with the major medical part, and it's a really good combination. The third thing is, go on the marketplace, healthcare.gov, and check that out and see if you qualify, because a lot of it's income based and other things. But there's some plans on there that some of them compete and some of them suck. So it just depends. But those are three options for healthcare. But if they can secure another option, and another option I just thought about too is because the lady from Free Market Physician was telling me she has Christian healthcare, and she said according to her, I mean, their prices are great, but I mean, I've heard a couple of stories. One guy had a major heart attack. They didn't have any insurance, but they have this program I mean, his bills were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and, they paid every single dime of it, so. So anyway, so there's 4 options.
Yeah, great answers, Lowell. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
All right, Levi, you had mentioned that the other questions in the chat that you had a good answer on. Is that something you're going to cover offline, or you want to cover that here?
Yeah, I can cover that here.
Okay.
You want to ask the question, Dustin, for
Yeah, you
Austin,
bet.
and I can answer it?
Yeah, you bet. So Austin asked some questions here. Austin, I know you asked about how much to save for 12 months, but I think we already kind of touched on that. So I'm going to skip forward to this. You said also, this is to Lowell, you said earlier about making sure your partner was on the same page regarding your investments in business. You said that your wife was the brakes and then you were the gas. So what's the distinction between someone who doesn't support you versus someone just, pumping the brakes?
So being divorced, I feel like I can kind of answer this question. My first wife, she was not supportive of it at all. I had a clear path. I wanted to invest. I wanted to, basically take my 20s and just go pump in and just build. So that way, by the time, I'm in my mid 30s rolling on, it's pretty much kind of easy come, easy go. I could kind of be in and out when I want. And then, the goal is by the time I'm pushing towards my 40s, I'm pretty much retired and have everything set up the way I want, and, pretty much just go do whatever I want at that point. And, her vision was, let's go party, let's go drink, let's go, blow money, let's go on stupid vacations, and stuff like that. And, I'm not saying that going out and partying and having fun and, hanging out with friends and going on vacations is a bad thing, but, there's limits to it, like Lowell kind of talked about at the beginning. I mean, you got to set a budget for a vacation. There's planning that has to go into it. It's not anything that you can just be like, oh, hey, $5,000 came in. Let's just, hop on a plane and go to Destin for a 3-day weekend and go blow $3,000 of it. That stuff doesn't work. So, kind of that, touch and go, needing somebody that's supportive, obviously that wasn't supportive. That was absolutely against the dream and the idea. That $3,000 could have went into buy a property and could have, started investing in a house there, and, time and time again there, to where that could have built faster versus, the wife I have now. I mean, she's actively in the business. She's actively, supportive of what we're doing and what our goals are. But to that point, she's kind of the brakes, where I'm just like, I'm go 1000%, all the time. And she's like, well, hold on, breathe for a second. And so it's more of a supportive break, to where it's, you have that energy, you have that passion and drive and wanting to succeed. You can get burnout and overdo it. So she's kind of that support and that break system that's like, okay, hey, listen, you need a break today. You need, okay, I understand you want to go buy this many units today, but let's look at this. We probably need to break this out over 3 or 4 months. So then that way, our onboarding system isn't just cluttered and trashed. And then all of a sudden we bring on too much too fast. And then, we're just chaos for a couple of months. So it's kind of more that support system of, I'm not telling you no, I'm just telling you, let's break this out in these segments to where, we can actually chunk this and handle this a lot better than just all at once. So, to answer for Austin's question, I think that's the big difference, is you can have somebody that is literally just absolutely really not supportive at all in the decision, and then somebody that is, but still has that braking system that you need. You need that counterbalance, because as Chris might be able to jump in here, and being able to run 24/7 and sometimes not having that braking system, it takes a toll, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah. So I don't really have the braking system necessarily. And sometimes, we'll get on a call. It's like, I've been going 16 hours and there's no checks or balances there. There's no break. It's, I don't know. I love what I do, but at the same time, I can run myself to exhaustion. So,
and it's easy to do. I mean, we all love what we do. We all have the passion for what we do. I mean, I could absolutely, when I first met Abby, my wife now, I mean, she'll tell stories that, I was seriously running 24, 26 hours at a time, and then all of a sudden just crashing, because I didn't have anybody. I was in that period to where it was just like work, just, you know, go. And I mean, I was unhealthy. Like I was sick and just, I was real skinny and stuff like that. Didn't want to eat hardly anything, you know, basically just pretty much on a water diet. And it was very unhealthy. And, you know, being able to kind of have that checks and balance system to be able to be like, okay, you're stopping and eating. Like, okay, you're going to slow down for a second. Okay. You know, take an hour, do this. And, you know, then it's, you kind of start getting into that routine where you're not used to it. I mean, a lot changes.
Goes back to that, having a support system and like-minded people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
say that
can,
again, Katie.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear Katie. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I think it goes back to having the support system and being around like-minded people. I mean, going to these groups where it's a struggle to meet anybody that's supportive in general. Like that, let alone someone that also agrees on your dreams and places that you want to go. So, I mean, I think it just takes open communication and finding the right group of people to surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I was just thinking, I'll just share this real quick is, you know, with my financial coaching, really, it's not as much about getting people on quote a budget and saying you can't do this, you can't do that. What it really is about 9 times out of 10 is that the couple is not communicating about finances, because typically you've got one person who's doing the finances and the other one has nothing to do with it. So I'll just give you an example. I had a couple in last year that she did the finances. He was a postman. He didn't want anything to do with it. He just said, just whatever, I don't care. Well, I mean, they were having a really hard time, you know, paying their bills and all that. And she called me up and says, we've got to talk because we don't have any money. We can't pay our bills, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, bringing them together and talking about it and saying, okay, we're going to talk this through. Well, come to find out, it wasn't, they didn't have money. They just weren't controlling their money. And he had no idea. So usually one of the people, the one that's usually dragging their feet, it's because they feel like they have no control and they don't know what's going on. And so that was the case. He didn't really know what was going on. He just knew they needed to change something. But yet she was very reluctant because, oh my goodness, we're going to have to change everything we do. Well, turn that around. They got on the same page. You know, they didn't have any money, but the first thing we found out is the month before they'd spent $1,100 on eating out. And they didn't realize it.
Wow.
They didn't know. They're like, oh, I guess we need to stop eating out. The point is within 3 months, we got them on a budget, started, you know, helping them put it all together, figure out where all the money was going. In 3 months, they got a budget going. We got it set up to working. They sold a car that they really didn't need. They just wanted it, but you know, it was costing them about $1,000 a month between car payment, insurance, and upkeep and all that. So they got rid of that. They took the proceeds from it and paid off all their credit cards. And, you know, so they got rid of about 15 grand in debt and over $1,000 a month in expenses. But then they started knocking out the other bills. And so we just did a year review with him. And now, not only did he quit his job, his W-2 job, he's now joined his wife at her company, and they're doing it both full time. They've got money in savings. The only thing they owe now is for their house, and they're doing great. But really what it took is just getting them together to communicate and talk about it and get them on the same page. And I think that's what I was talking about with support. If you got one of the team that's not in support, well, there's a reason. There's some piece they don't know, they don't understand, or whatever. So sometimes it just takes a minute to sit down and put your goals together for the two of you. So it's not just, Like Levi, like I said, you had a goal, boom, 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 I want to do all this. And she wasn't on board. Well, what's her goals? You know, I mean, if she would have thought, okay, well, I'm gonna have a piece of this, so, but I want to do this. Okay, well, you do that, I'll do that, we'll do it together. And you sit down together and make that plan. But again, the number one word there is communication.
I 100% agree. I mean, it's definitely a struggle. You talk about the eating out and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it's tough when you go spend $400 to $600 on groceries, and there's plenty of food to be able to eat at home. And constantly it's, let's do pizza takeout, let's do Chinese takeout, let's do this, let's do that, let's eat out for lunch every single meal. And it's like, you can't do that. I mean, I'll eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich for lunch. That's cheap and easy.
Yep.
Yep.
I love peanut butter and jelly and a glass of milk.
And some Cheetos.
Oh, yeah.
Hey Lowell, what's a good book for couples? I've got one that comes to mind, but what do you recommend for couples to kind of get on the same, maybe not the same page, but be able to support each other in their own goals? What's a good book or two that you recommend for couples?
Well, the one that I told you about already, this one, that is a great little book. And, I recommend that a couple take this, they read it together, and then they do their own brainstormings and then kind of combine it and put it all together. So that's one. The other one that I like for that, I don't know if you guys have heard of this or not. This book here is called 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller. This is a fantastic book, especially for someone who's thinking about going from W2 to self-employed. Long story short, he was a Sunday school teacher at a church. And a lot of the people that started coming to his class were business people. And well, he was an entrepreneur and a business people. And so they'd say, well, what about this? What about that? He ended up taking that and turning that Bible study into this program and ended up writing a book about it. But back then he had cassette tapes and a 3-ring binder that he had all this information about how to run a business, how to start it and all that. And he just put it out on the market, and he sold us $1 million worth in the first 6 months. But anyway, he's built a huge company from it now, but that book is what started it all. So that's a fantastic read, especially for a couple to sit down and really start thinking about it, because he gives lots of examples and lots of stories, and it's dynamite.
Thank you.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, guys?
Hey Lowell, what's a good way for everyone to link up with you if they want to discuss more, whether they're in the W2 trying to exit and go out on their own, or just need some good business coaching?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is just go to lowelllane.net. So it's LOWELLLANE.net. And that basically has everything on it about me, what I do, all the different pieces, contact pages, got my link to my calendar, you can set an appointment, all that stuff. So yeah, just lowelllane.net or call me. Just type in my name, Lowell Lane, Higher Vision, it'll pop up.
Perfect.
Well, thank you again, guys. I love talking about this stuff, but I offer a free assessment. And the whole point of the free assessment is just kind of sit down to get a snapshot of where you're at right now, what needs to be addressed, and what might be some good steps to go forward. That's all free. You get a great worksheet that goes with it and that. And like I said, if I can help you, great. And if it's not something that I do, well, we have a ton of referral partners where we can steer you in the right direction.
Awesome. Chris, you got anything else?
I don't. So we appreciate your time, Lowell, and
No
everyone.
problem.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. See you guys later.
See you.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks. Bye.